sponsor, Steve Aguado, for the banner y'all see behind me. Also, Justin Womack for the chain that y'all see me. I'll be rocking them at the tournaments once it's tournament time. Also, thank Mata Training for the shirt. Make sure y'all hit the like, hit the subscribe button. And today we have the head coach of the Athletics Mercado Academy 2029. We want to welcome Christie Chapman to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. And I have to say it's Christie Chapman Rogelstad. I have to. Yep, I got to give my hubby some love.
Yeah, hey, make sure,
Yeah.
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 Christie Chapman. I'm not even
Rogelstad.
gonna
Yep.
mess up his name.
Yeah, that's okay. My playing name Christie Chapman, but now
I'm married. Yep.
now I'm
Okay.
married. Yep. So
Yep. I got to make sure I add that to the caption too.
you're all right. It's all good. It's all good. I just don't want to hear him smack talking me. No, I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
right. Oh, you forgot about me, right?
Yeah, right.
Let's start off by talking about your upbringing. What sports you played growing up?
I played a lot of sports growing up. I started off with softball, then I switched to baseball. I played baseball from fourth grade to ninth grade with the boys. I played soccer. Well, I swam, but I was ear infection prone, so they told me I couldn't do that anymore. So at that point, I went to play soccer. That was in like fourth grade, and did really well at that. I played select with that as well. So it was kind of like alternating seasons. It was soccer, softball, soccer, softball. Tiny bit of overlap, but where I'm from, we had actual seasons because of the weather. So, we actually shut down softball or baseball, whichever one it was, for a while. So I did that until after I got my scholarship, I stopped playing soccer. So my 12th grade year, I didn't play soccer, but up until that, I played select for both. And then in high school, well, middle school, we didn't really have middle school. We had elementary from K to 7 and then high school from 8 to 12. So it was a little different than down here. But I ran track, did volleyball, did basketball. So I did those also in school. So we did a lot of different sports.
Just an
So
athlete.
yeah, that was
Just an athlete.
just anywhere I could compete. Anywhere I could compete.
Yeah.
And yep, that was it.
Mhm.
So
So you did all those sports. You did every sport growing up.
yep.
So what made you choose softball over all those other sports?
It was always my first love. Like I just love to compete. Like I said, like there was times up in Canada we just didn't play because it was too cold, right? So it was like I wasn't about to just go sit around. So my family is very athletic. My grandpa was an Olympian for basketball. He has a silver medal from the 36 Olympics. He's in the BC Sports Hall of Fame. Like there's some extensive basketball background there. My dad went to college originally on a basketball scholarship, then decided that he wanted to play baseball instead. So then he went and played pro. Like, my other grandpa was a pretty phenomenal world class curler. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but I always get a lot of comments during the Winter Olympics. They're like, "Oh, curling's awesome." Like, yeah,
Is
it's
that what that is with
it's
the
like the shuffleboard on ice, I guess is like
Oh,
the best
okay,
way to
okay.
kind of like describe it. Yeah.
Yeah.
With the rocks and the brooms. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, so yeah, again, like just the whole family is just extremely athletic, the whole background. But baseball was always kind of my first love. My dad was the head scout of Canada for the Dodgers and Giants growing up. So, involved in baseball just my whole life. Like went to the park with him, scouted. I was his little like sidekick. I used to run the stopwatch, and he'd let me hold the radar gun. And I was just always obsessed with everything. Like I would eavesdrop on his scouts conversations. Like he was in his office, and I just sit outside and listen because I just loved the game. And so it's just kind of, I don't know if it was nature or nurture. I don't know if I was just born loving it or if it was just because it was what I was around the most. It also was the sport that challenged me the most. I felt like um, it's a really hard game. Like you never really perfect any game, but I just found the mental aspect of it just very intriguing and very satisfying. So So yeah, I don't really know why. It was just my favorite. So
Okay. So
something about hitting that ball.
yeah, hey,
Yeah, yeah.
y'all have at it, cause I mean I played when I was younger, but for me I was a basketball guy. I played
Hmm.
basketball.
Yep.
It was just too slow for me. I needed action. I needed
Yeah.
action all the time. So about I think I was 7 or 8, and I gave it up. I gave baseball up. I was like, yeah, this
Yeah.
not for me.
Right.
This
Well,
not
I
for me.
mean, I was like in fourth grade, I went to try out for my first select team,
Mhm.
and I was technically a year too young. There was a me and another girl that were supposed like technically too young, and but they said, oh, it wasn't a problem. Well, we ended up not making the team, but it was probably because, it's a little bit of politics. There were some
Mhm.
other people's kids who might not have made the team if we were on it, whatever. Same thing that happens now.
Mhm.
The political stuff. So I mean, I was pissed. I wrote a book about it. My mom still has it to this day. Like there's a statement at the end. It's I will never play softball again. But I love the sport. So I was like, I want to play baseball. And they were like, well, they don't have girls baseball. I said, I don't care. I'll play with the boys.
Mhm.
But I think it was also like I was seeking out at that point, like a more of a challenge, right?
Mhm.
And like the cartwheels in the outfield, chasing butterflies just wasn't cutting it for me. So I was seeking out that challenge. And when it wasn't available at my age, it was like I wanted to do something else. So again, like it was always about that. It was always about that challenge. So
Mhm.
that's just how I am.
Okay, and I know like you grew up in Canada. At what age did you move to the States?
Um, Sorry, I moved when I went to college. I was recruited
Okay.
from Vancouver, where I'm from. Yep, down to Florida. Yep.
Okay.
So,
Okay. So how
yep.
was the select softball or baseball, whatever you played in Canada?
How was it? I mean, it was great. I mean, it was there's a lot of talent. Obviously our populations are a lot different from Canada to the US. That's what
Mhm.
I always try to like. It's not that we don't have the talent, we just don't have the population to have as much of the talent, right? Does that
Mhm.
make sense?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of really, really good players up there. They got a lot of really good things going on. Especially there's some hot spots, throughout the country, of course.
Mhm.
But Vancouver, where I grew up, was one of those big hot spots. Again, intense population for the most part compared to a lot of the other places in Canada, but also the weather over there is more mild than the rest of the country. So,
Mhm.
I played for the premier organization in the country at that time, and I mean, I think they're still up there pretty high. I haven't really kept up with it that much, but I do know from my daughters being involved with Team Canada, I'm starting to kind of get more familiar again with the scene back up there. And I mean, they're still a very a premier organization. It was called the White Rock Renegades. So they it was a good transition when I went over there. And they know what they're doing, and they send a lot of kids down to the states to play in college. Back then, it was still kind of like, there was some girls before us, but we were still kind of trailblazing it a little bit.
Mhm.
So that was kind of an exciting thing too, because we all knew, even if you were the best player in the league up there, you still had to compete down here where
Mhm.
there's more girls competing against each other all the time, right? It's kind of the same um, environment I feel that we have in Houston with select softball. Like I feel like our talent is so like we have such again a great population, great climate, and there's a lot of competition. So it's kind of that same thing. Like you can like if you play in Houston, you're always getting that really good competition.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Yeah,
yep,
and that's why a lot of the like the Houston teams, I mean, most of the time you can almost just stay local and
yep,
get competition, every weekend,
yep.
and I mean, it's good to go out, and play the other states and stuff like that, but you go to the other states and you still end up playing the team from Houston.
It's happened a lot. Yes, it happens a lot. So Yeah, no, it's good. But yeah, no, we up in Canada, they do it a little. Well, I think they've adapted now, but it was a little different back then. It was more like high school where there was zones and like you had to play for this specific organization if you lived within
Mhm.
this zone, and so it was a lot more, I guess, controlled in terms of like there was like house league, there was B, and there was A. So obviously, like if you wanted to play we called it rep, like representative, I guess.
Mhm.
So if you wanted to play rep or select, you went to try out. If you didn't make the A team, maybe you made the B team. If you didn't make the B team, well, then I guess you just still tried to develop in the league. There wasn't just like creating your own team situations, so that was a little bit different of a dynamic too for a lot of people, because you couldn't recruit, you couldn't, like, there was things that you just had to develop the team that you had, and
Mhm.
the coaches had to develop the players they had, and all the way up through the different classifications in order to stay competitive. So it was just a little different. I think
Okay.
it's changed now, but that's how it
Okay.
used to be. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, because if Susie don't compete now, Pop's just gonna make a team.
pretty much.
So
Or
how
you just bounce
different
around, right? Yeah.
yeah,
Sorry,
that
go ahead.
yeah. Oh, you good.
Yeah.
So how different is the recruiting now from when you went through it?
Yeah, I mean, shoot, it's even changed from when my daughter, who's a senior, was going through it, I feel, to how it's going to be moving forward with all the changes to the roster sizing and all that sort of stuff. So, I mean, it's changed a lot. Again, I can't compare what used to happen down here because I didn't experience it down here,
Mhm.
right? I experienced it in Canada. So I know we went to a couple showcase tournaments, we went to, I remember went to Vegas for one, and then we went to Colorado a couple times. And those were basically like our trips that we, like, our big recruiting trips that we would come on, down here. And then other than that, we played our select league at home. We had our provincials, we had our nationals. But the one thing that we did have up there, and it's actually still going on, and I understand it's still a really good tournament, is the Canada Cup. And that started off as an international tournament. It's, where all the national teams go to compete,
Mhm.
on a yearly basis. And when I was playing back then, I guess this was, I think the first maybe time I played in it was it was 2000. Um, they called it what did they call it? I guess the showcase side of the tournament. So it was not the select teams, but it was the showcase tournament that like piggybacked on that big international tournament, and it was a lot of fun. I always tell people, anytime you can play in an international event,
Mhm.
you like represent, and or even be around an international event where people are representing their country, it's just a different vibe, it's a different feel, it feels good. I mean, it's similar to college, I guess, because you're kind of just, but I don't know, there's just something a little different even about representing your country, and when people are there
Mhm.
doing that, it's really special. But I played in that, and that's actually ultimately where I ended up getting recruited out of to the school that I went to. So got a lot of interest in everything from the tournaments, in Colorado and all that. But ultimately, the opportunity that I was given at Canada Cup was sort of what ended up, being my uh, the start to my recruiting process with USF. And um, in terms of what's different, I do know we did not have, Twitter and social media to showcase our.
Right.
We did not have phones in our pockets to video ourselves and cut film and do all that stuff. I literally actually just over Christmas was cleaning out our attic, and my parents had brought down a bag for me, like, I don't know, a couple years ago, and I had never gone through it, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna go through this thing, and I'm gonna see what I want to keep, and I'm gonna see what can we can get rid of here. And I found my old VHS recruiting tape.
Uh-oh.
So I have yet to be able to find one to watch it. I've had a couple of people say they have them, but I do have to remember to get it from them. But yeah, we would literally mail, like, well, first of all, we had a, camera guy basically
Mhm.
come out with his big, like, over the
Yeah.
shoulder camcorder, video drills and all sorts of stuff on the field. And then they put it together, they cut it together. You said your little, hi, I'm Christie Chapman and I play shortstop for the White Rock Renegades. And, these are my stats and these are my goals and all this stuff. And then there's clips of you playing and you just mailed off those VHS tapes. So
Mhm.
that piece is a lot different. There's a lot more like email was kind of newish, right? So it was
Mhm.
like you wrote letters. Like I still have some letters that my coach wrote to me, like way. I also think because of that though, it gave girls the ability to really focus on themselves. I feel like some of them now, one of the goals is like getting them to just block out all that social media noise because
Mhm.
it can be very distracting if
Yeah.
you get locked into what everyone else is doing instead of worrying about what you're doing. So
Mhm.
I guess it's kind of like dating nowadays. I wouldn't want to do it for myself. It's like I'll just keep to the old school thing. But no, I mean you
Yeah.
have to adapt, right? As a coach, now it's like I'm trying to
Mhm.
learn the new process, and I had to do it with my older daughter, and um, it's just a lot more intense. I feel because it's literally instantaneous. You can get a message back, you can get a read receipt with no response. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's a lot. You send an email, you're not getting a response. You know that. I mean, if you send a letter and you're not getting a response, I mean, you don't
Mhm.
you don't
You
really
don't
think
think
about
about
it again because it's
Yeah.
not going to
You
come for
forget
another
about
couple
it.
weeks,
Yeah.
right? So
Mhm.
yeah, so it's just different. And obviously the sport's grown so much that just the number of girls that are playing just intensifies everything a lot, right? And then
Mhm.
just everything intensifies as things get better and the money gets more, the NIL stuff's on the table, the transfer portal is in play now. I mean, there's so many things that have changed. It's a lot to keep up with. So yeah, now just it's like the girls aren't going to be right now, but they have to start, if that's something that they want, they have to start preparing and learning the process and
Mhm.
kind of understanding the next steps because once they hit high school, I mean it's on.
Yeah,
It's on
they
for
go.
sure. Yeah.
So I mean, being in Canada, and you got all of these states and schools in between you and Florida. Like, what made you want to go to Florida, and what other schools did you have recruiting you at the time?
Oh gosh, I had a lot of schools. Oh my gosh, my mom had like a comforter bag, like the bed in the
Mhm.
bags
Yeah.
thing. She had one of those full of letters and I mean all sorts of stuff. But ultimately, like I would say, it came down to two schools really. That I was like, I mean, I had a lot, but it was like, whatever. I don't want to go play in the cold. I'm from the cold. Let me go
Mhm.
play somewhere not in the cold, or just whatever the reason was. Position, whatever the process was that I came down to. It came down to two schools, and it was between USF and University of Georgia.
Mhm.
And really, it was just after my visit at USF, it just felt right. Coach Ken, he was just a genuine person. You could just like, you just get that vibe about people, right?
Yeah.
And you just feel that um I just felt like I was going to be like what he was saying was true and I was going to get an opportunity um to come in and play, and if I deserved it, then I would start. And it was just I was going to be so far away from home. I mean, Vancouver's 2 hours north of Seattle and I was going down to Tampa, Florida. So it was just that was important to me too, just feeling at home, almost feeling like I was gonna be somewhere where I was taken care of. I mean, I was 17 when I went to college, so that was kind of a big deal.
Okay.
Yep.
So
Yep.
you've experienced the recruiting process it's a little different than it is now.
Yeah.
How do you use that experience to help your kid, like when she was going through the process, to make her process easier?
I mean, I think again, I think it's I don't I don't know if it's if there is making it easier. I think exposing her to like different opportunities, different options, just not being so like everybody knows like the name brand schools, I call them, the SEC schools, Texas obviously here, like everybody knows those, but it's really like exposing them to all the options that are out there, because I say this to the kids on my team, the parents on my team, like, I mean, really anybody, like, there's an opportunity for everybody to play at the next level if that's what they want to do. It's just not going to look the same for everybody, right? So you got to find your fit. And the older they get, the more they start to understand what really matters to them, and that will help to guide them to where they should target. And it kind of happens both ways, but it is a really difficult process when before that September 1st to their junior year date, and they cannot necessarily get a lot of feedback right
Mhm.
directly, or have a lot of, it can be difficult. So just kind of making sure that she had perspective on all the opportunities that were out there, having an open mind,
Mhm.
just really trying to cultivate those things. And then in the actual process itself, just I never did it for her, but I mean, of course, they need your help, right? And they
Yeah.
need your guidance, and they need your reminding, and
Mhm.
they need, like there's certain things that you got to get done, um and you just help them do that, and just
Mhm.
really listen to them too, because that there's a couple years there where it's a burnout. It's really tough. Like there is not really a break. Like if you're going to camps and you're playing high school, you're going to camps, you're playing your select, you're playing summer, like there's really no downtime. So it's just staying in tune with them to where they're at, so that they don't mentally break down. I mean, physically too, obviously, but
Mhm.
there can be it's a seriously mental grind as well. So it's physical and mental for real. So
Yeah, I bet.
yep.
I bet. Because,
Mhm,
I mean, I don't know, around the time when she got her offer, or, when she
mhm,
was, what was the process for her? But did if she had, like, did she have, like, teammates maybe getting looks, or some things maybe before her, and then at that point she could easily get down, like, what about me? Because I'm pretty sure some girls think of that,
mhm,
not saying she did, but I'm pretty sure some girls get in that mental part of it, where, like, well, all my
mhm.
teammates getting these looks, they're getting these emails or letters, however they
Yeah,
do it, and what about me? I'm on their team. Maybe I should get
right.
these exact same looks at least.
Right. No, I mean, she committed pretty early, so she never really got into that. I think it's more before that in the process.
Mhm.
So that's where I think really it really matters, um, the org you're with and the coach specifically that you're with,
Mhm.
and that they have a belief in you, and that they're advocating for you and that they have your back.
Mhm.
She didn't necessarily have that, and that was where the extreme mental grind came in. There's a lot of politics again
Yeah.
still with it, even if it's select, even if everyone wants to say it's a meritocracy and you get what you earn and this, that, and the other. There's definitely other things at play.
Mhm.
So that piece, just being a player, I think really helped me help guide her as a player and maintain her confidence. And then just really finding the right team, even if we weren't in it necessarily at the beginning. And um, so that's yeah, it's really help having them stay focused on what they're doing again, and not what everyone else is doing, because everyone's journey is going to look different, and everyone's opportunity is going to look a little bit different just depending on different things. So yeah.
Okay. So through your whole career of you playing in college, for the 4 years, did you ever think when you got done, did you ever think that you would be a coach?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think so. I always, even when I played, like again, like I always made it my business to have a really great understanding of the game. And that was just kind of instilled in me by my dad. I mean, we would sit on the couch and watch baseball, and he, would talk about situational stuff, and um that was always just a part of our relationship and just part of something I love to do. Like, I love to understand the game. When I played with the boys, that was my edge. Like, physically, I mean, not saying never, like I wasn't scrawny or something by any means, but like they're boys, right?
Right.
At a certain point they became men, and I was like, okay, I got to go play softball. Like, I'm never going to be 6'2" and
Mhm.
190, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So but mentally, situationally, that's where I level set to the point where I just physically couldn't level set anymore. But a lot of those, uh that's where I got my edge. So so yeah, that was, yes, that's it.
Okay, because like you said, y'all sit down and y'all basically, if y'all watching the game, you would
Hmm.
just break down. Okay, what happened here? What did they do here?
Hmm.
Do do listening to the commentators, do they help? I know they break it down,
Yeah.
at the best way they can,
Hmm.
but like for me, for somebody that didn't really know the game. I mean, I still don't know it, but I know some of it.
Hmm.
But for me, I like to listen to the commentators, to just hear what they saying.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I like, see it like, okay, well, they said they did this. Okay, let me see it. Right.
Right.
So did that help you with your IQ level in any kind of way?
um I think when I was listening with, my dad, I always any commentator, but I mean, I mean, I don't like to listen to games on silent. So, yeah, listen to what they have to say. It's kind of like good coaching versus bad coaching. Once you kind of understand what's going on, you kind of like learn like what was a well, who's a good commentator and who's a bad
Mhm.
commentator, right?
Mhm.
So who really gets the game and who doesn't. And I
Mhm.
mean, again, it's usually their former players, especially
Uh-huh.
now, like a lot of
Yeah.
the time. So a lot of it comes from their perspective on their position, a lot of those things. So it's always, I like to always listen to different perspectives, and doesn't mean necessarily agree with them, or but sometimes it just gives you a little like, like that's a different way to think about it too. So I
Mhm.
mean, somebody told me once, I think there's like a million different variations of play that can happen in a 9 inning baseball game. Like, so, there's it's just it's just a really complex game. So
Mhm.
the part for coaching, I guess, is the hardest part is trying to simplify it enough to have them understand it, but then be able to react in any variation of those million
Mhm.
situations that could arise in a game, right? Because you only have so much time to practice and all that. But yeah, growing up, I think so that coach part was always in me. I think I do, even with my career. I tend to be the person that people kind of come to for. I tend to just start to try to really understand different processes and refine processes, and just become an expert, or and kind of become that person that people come to for information or for perspective or for strategy. So I guess I'm just Coach Christie all the time anyways, so I'll own it.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah.
And excuse, coaching your kid. Some
Hmm.
coaches, well, I can't say the coach put pressure on the kid, which
Hmm.
I mean, you probably do, but a lot of times is the parents that's on the team, or maybe not even on the team, that's just watching, and they expect for the coach's kid to just be the best kid all the time.
Yeah.
when a lot of like it's not always that. So do you hold your kids to a different standard while playing for you?
Um, well, that's a loaded question, Levi. um, so do I hold my kids to a different standard without being a coach? Yes. And here's the reason. I know their genetics
Hmm.
and I know their potential. And so and if they tell me they want something, then we create a plan and we go to execute it. And that's just how I've always been, right? But um so yes, I hold them to a different standard. Now, like I just said, with work ethic, with certain things, yes. Now, when it comes to a game, I mean, of course, if you put in all that time, you want them to perform, right? And
Yeah.
to a certain extent, especially when you're the coach, that there's going to be more eyes or maybe more scrutiny or whatever it is on your kid. So I've always told my kids, especially if I'm your coach, then you have to maintain a certain level, right? Because otherwise, because otherwise I'm not just going to play you. Like, this isn't, I'm not going to do mommy ball, right? So
Mhm.
so if you're gonna play and I'm gonna coach, then yes, there is gonna be a certain expectation, right? Otherwise, and especially the levels that we've gotten to and the level we play at, there are expectations. If we don't have those goals or have those expectations of ourselves, then we'll just go play a lower class or we'll go play league and just have fun and whatever. Like,
Mhm.
so it's really just kind of understanding what your kids goals are, I think, and then seeing if achieving those goals requires that level of accountability. So yeah, I mean, I do hold them to a higher standard, and I never want anyone to think that they just get stuff because I'm their mom, so and they
Mhm.
they they feel that way too. I actually stopped coaching my older daughter at basically the first year of fall 14U because she just felt like she would do better with me as the coach at home, right? But she didn't want that pressure of me, you know, being the one that wrote the lineup. So she wanted to make her own path and I respected that. So that was a good path for her. So,
Mhm.
yep.
Okay. And your
Yep.
youngest one, she's a pitcher, right?
No, not
She's not
anymore.
pitch. Oh, okay. I
No,
know
I mean,
she
she
was.
used to pitch. She
Yeah.
she she
Okay.
used to pitch. I mean, she still could. She's been going through a little bit of a rehab thing with her hips. She had a little like imbalance, so we basically have laid off pitching for now. So she's basically, middle infielder. I mean, she can play third base. I mean, she can basically play anywhere. She's athletic. She's an athlete.
Mhm.
Um, she doesn't catch. She wanted to way back, and I was like, I need you in the middle of the field. But like but then she started pitching and I was like, kid, you can't, like, literally we can't do everything. so um so yeah, no, she basically now she's a, infielder, hitter. She went to try out for the U15 national team in last, was that September, I guess. And we had down for her primary shortstop, secondary pitcher, and just from my older daughter being involved in the program, I kind of prepped her like they're probably not going to like you're probably they're probably going to ask you to either pick shortstop or pick pitcher. So you're going to have to be prepared for that question at the tryouts, right? So, we talked about it and I'm like, well, like, if you could only pick one, what would you want to do? And she said, no, I want to play shortstop. I said, okay. So the question did come up because,
Mhm.
pitchers and catchers had to stay after and do their own thing. And her name didn't get called. And she kind of looks at me and I'm like, well, go ask. Right. And so she went up to the head coach and she just, she said, you didn't call my name. Like, and she just put her arm around her and said, well, you want to be a shortstop? You want to be a pitcher? And she said shortstop. She said, "All right, kid, have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow." So, so it was kind of like I'm not saying she'll never pitch again,
Hmm.
in high school or whatever, as long as we get her,
Everything
uh,
taken care of.
everything situated,
Yeah.
and she's doing fine now. So I think it's, in the, it's, it's on the table if she wants to do it.
Hmm.
But yeah, she's pretty happy just playing defense and swinging the stick. So
Okay.
yeah,
And I mean, you can help them a little bit more with that, right? So, and
yeah.
you play, shortstop.
Hmm.
Are you the type of coach that not only just tells them, do this, do that, or do you sometimes physically go out there and show
I show 'em.
them?
Yeah, I show 'em. Yeah, I haven't done it in a while, and I need to, and it's really haven't done it because of my just lack of, being in shape, but I'm working on it. I'm working on it, so I'm getting back out there. So what we do typically, like, once a year. I used to do it once a kind of season, fall and spring, when
Mhm.
they were really little, just to set the example, because I always think that's the best way to show somebody what your expectations, right? So my nickname in college, or my nickname with growing up with softball, baseball, really any sport, was Chappie. So Chappie comes to practice. She's a player. She's not a coach. And
Uh-oh.
she just fits in wherever the coach tells her to go. That's what she does. She hustles around. She makes a mistake. So what? She moves on. She hypes up her teammates, just sort of all the things that we try to instill in them. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of me just telling them,
Right.
I show them.
Hmm.
So yeah, but even like yesterday, for example, we had a practice. Obviously we had to go inside because it's been rainy here, but I they weren't quite getting something, so I jumped out there and demonstrated, so I think that's an important thing to be able to do as a coach. But I do think coaches need to know their limit, and if they can't demonstrate, then don't try. because,
Right.
because
You don't need no pulled
don't
muscles out
expose
there.
yourself. Don't expose yourself.
Yeah.
So
Go
yeah,
out there,
that
bend
can
down, and
backfire. Could
yeah,
backfire real
exactly.
quick. Yeah, but I'll run
Yeah.
bases. I'll run bases for him if we're doing situations. Like, I'll run base. I mean, I regret it the next day. Trust me. But in the moment, it's like, this is what they need. This is what I'll
Hmm.
do. I'll get in there and drop bunts. We'll do bunt defense. Like, whatever. So I still like to show them that, hey, I could beat you if I needed to.
Uh-oh. Watch out. so
I'm still
so
competing. I'm still a competitor.
yeah. So when Chappie goes to practice and like you said, she make a mistake
Hmm.
and you just like do because like these girls, some of them these days they make a mistake and you can see it,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So what are some things that you tell them, if you make a mistake, you know what I mean? Like if they look at you and they still see you it
Hmm.
is what it is,
Right.
whatever.
Right.
And do they ask you like, do you get down when you make a mistake or something like that?
Um, I mean, I don't know if they've really asked me, like, not, I guess not when I'm like kind of playing that I mean, it wasn't really a character, it's kind of who I am, but
Yeah.
when I'm not the coach,
Hmm.
no, I think they just kind of like take it all in, they
Hmm.
just, and then I can use
Feeding
it as
off
an
of it.
example, like,
Yeah.
so if they do that, like the next practice or down the line, it's like, hey, like, I get
Hmm.
it. Like, I'm a competitor. I don't want to make a mistake. Like, nobody does. But like, what did that mistake look like? Let's talk about that. Like, is it because you were timid and held back, or did you put everything you had into it? Like, were you focused? Were you prepared? Like, what? Like, let's talk about it. It's, learn from it. Why did it happen? And then just don't repeat it. I think that's every coach's um sort of desire or expectation is, hey, we understand this game's really hard and things are going to happen, right? um just you just got to move on. You got to have a short memory, and you got to understand maybe what happened, and then try to fix it the next time, right? So I mean, that's really what it's all about. So
Hmm. And I
'cause
think,
as I
yeah,
say,
I
the
think,
alternative is just quitting. So if
yeah,
you're not going
right.
to quit, then just keep going, like.
Hmm.
right?
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think like these, like for the younger girls, I think that's the thing that they need to understand. It's like most of the times this sport is a very, you fail a lot, right? So when you fail, is no point in thinking about what happened or what, just go
Mhm.
to the next. You're in the game, you get a ball hit to you, bobble it, go to
Mhm.
the next play. You
Yep.
can't press rewind, you can't put the batter back
Mhm.
there. Like
Yep.
you just can't do it, right?
Yep.
So
Mhm.
just keep on going, fix your mistake, like, and I mean
Mhm.
that's how it is. I don't see it. But I don't see how y'all be playing this first of all. Anyway,
Well, it is very frustrating because most other sports, if you execute something perfectly, you're gonna get the result you want. In this
right.
game, you could hit a line drive, so you could execute everything in your swing perfectly, and somebody could catch it,
Hmm.
right? Like as a pitcher, you could feel like you just made the perfect pitch, and somebody may still find it, or you might, and then the fielder makes a mistake.
Hmm.
Um, you think you did everything right fielding a ground ball, but that girl running to first was just too fast. There's a lot of there's a lot of, even if you do something yourself perfectly,
Yeah.
there's still a lot of variables that could lead
Yeah.
to the failure, right?
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. So how do you separate, from the being a mom to being a coach? Like when do you draw the line, cut it off? Is it when you get in the car or when you get out the car to practice?
Phew, probably when we get out of the car. I mean,
Mhm.
I try to not treat her any differently. I mean, obviously there's things like if you're introducing a new drill, a lot of the times our kids are the guinea pigs, right?
Right.
So they are the ones that you call out to be like, "Hey, do this with me to demonstrate," right? So I mean, there are going to be things like that. But again, I don't think that's necessarily being mom. That's just
Right.
a byproduct of of the
Mhm. Yeah,
relationship and the
because it's
proximity, right?
something. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
something you didn't
Yeah.
practice at home, most likely.
Yeah. I mean, I think
Mhm.
again, that you go back to the expectations, I think it's you notice more if your kid is not up to par that day,
Mhm.
but then you also have to understand that every kid is going to have a day that they're
Mhm.
not, right? So
Mhm.
trying not to let, just because it's your kid maybe that day, affect you any differently than it would with any other kid. You know what I mean? And I've been guilty of it. I've you know get a little more with my kid than
Right.
than I would with another kid, but
Mhm.
you just got to check yourself, and it's what the thing that I've realized is I get especially at like tournaments, like I get so focused on coaching and being, just in my space in terms of like trying to figure out everything for everyone, that
Mhm.
like I really have to go, okay, between games I got to get this kid fed, I gotta, you know what I mean? So it's like I'm trying to take
Mhm.
care of 12 of them,
Right.
all the time, but I have to really consciously remember to take care of
Mhm.
mine, because every
Yeah.
other kid can go to their parents and get the,
Mhm.
hey, it's okay if you had a bad game, or hey, great job, blah blah blah. I tend to kind of not do any of that, and I've really tried to make a conscious effort to
Mhm.
to actually turn in back into mom, between games,
Yeah.
just so she has the same support or encouragement
That's
or
nice. Yeah.
food, or I mean the same care, right, that all the other kids are, get from
Mhm.
their parents, right? I mean, so she's got a good personality for that. She's very independent, very she gets it. I mean, she gets it, but I still, for me, it's something that I've noticed that I need to do just a little more, so.
Mhm. Okay,
Mhm.
let's say you have like a kid at practice that, I mean, they just having a bad day.
Mhm.
You can see it in the body language and everything. How do you approach them, and to handle the situation?
I mean, if it's just, sometimes you show up to practice and you can just tell, like, it's just a worn out group, right?
Mhm.
So I always tell them, if all you have today is 50%, give me the whole 50% for this next couple hours. right? Like,
Mhm.
I get it. Like, I've been in your shoes. I've been from basketball to soccer to softball practice all in the same night. Then I got to do my homework. I'm exhausted. You know what I mean? Like, they have all these things going on.
Mhm.
Um, all these hormones, all this stuff going on. So like I really try to take myself back to their age at times, right? But also understand the level they're at and their goals, right? And just kind of keep
Mhm.
everything in perspective. So it's really just about showing up and giving everything you have at that moment, because that's the thing with sports, high level sports, this game, you're not always going you're actually rarely going to feel 100%, right?
Mhm.
Learning how to perform and how to be a good player when you're not feeling great is what ultimately leads to great players.
Yeah.
So it's just so as a whole, that would how I address it. If it's just a single kid, I mean, I'd probably just have a little chat with them, pull them aside. I mean, not maybe not necessarily pull them aside, because you don't want them to ever feel like kind of like isolated, or like oh, now
Mhm.
people know, or they but you just
Yeah.
kind of find ways to just
Tell
kind of
them certain
roam
things.
around
Mhm.
when they're playing catch or whatever, just kind of meet them
Mhm.
where they're at and just kind of do a little check-in and just see what's going on at that moment, right?
Mhm.
And if it's and sometimes it's not even softball related, it's
Right.
whatever, something else. So
Mhm.
I just want them to know that I'm there for them no matter what, and it's softball should be their escape from whatever, whatever is going on. And if the stress or the emotion is coming from softball, then hey, let's figure it out. If it's
Mhm.
not and you want to talk to me about it and you think I can help, then let's figure it out. So that's where I think being a mom and being a coach is an advantage, especially at this age, right?
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
maybe if you have not had kids, you might have a different perspective
Right.
on a crappy attitude.
Right.
I mean, if it's a consistent crappy attitude, that's one thing. But if it's a one off and you're like, that's not who this kid is,
Mhm.
right? Like, what's going on? Like, it's a little more of there's a little more intuition, I think, there with that stuff. So, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
So like in regular practice, y'all probably get there at some days, and you put girls, in their positions, do positions.
Hmm.
How important is it to also break it down and just do like fundamental drills? Simple fielding drills. Work with the backhand, one
Hmm.
hop. Stuff like that. Like, how important is that to just put in every now and then in a practice?
We do it every single day. Every single
Yeah.
practice. The game is about repetitive actions.
Mhm.
If you can break it down fundamentally and basically understand what you're supposed to be doing in each step of the process,
Mhm.
then by the time you have to react in the game, you really don't have to think anymore. That's when your athleticism takes over. That's when your instincts take over. If you're worried about practicing form in the middle of fielding a ground ball during the game, you're probably not going to be as successful as you want to be. So those fundamental actions, and not just doing them but really understanding them,
Mhm.
understanding why you're doing it. Like, my girls, like, I'm like, ask me questions. Like, I'm not the coach that's, if you ask me why, I'm not going to get mad at you. I mean, obviously there's a way to do it. We're trying to teach them how to
Right.
be respectful in their communication and all that, right? Not like, well, why are we doing this, right? But
Mhm.
hey, I'm curious, or I was told to do it this way over here and now you're telling me to do it this way. Like, can we talk about that? Or that doesn't feel great for me. Let's talk about what does feel good. And because not everyone's body's the same, right? There's going to be different things,
Mhm.
but
Yep.
it's really just, yeah, like having them really understand those things. So no, fundamentals, I mean, that's basically every day. I mean, but again, like, that's, as a coach, like, that's your job, to make them understand, like, they can't just take ground balls or once a week, right? So it's like we give them these tools, we give them these ideas, we do the ground balls, but they
Mhm.
really want to be a next level infielder or a next level outfielder. Like, they
Yeah.
better get out there more than just once a week at practice, right? And again try to review those things themselves and take those reps. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Yep, I agree with that. I agree with that because I mean I understand, getting into positions, but
Hmm.
sometimes like when y'all do get inside, in the position y'all do it,
Yeah.
do y'all do game time situations or
Oh,
sometimes y'all just, you just hit? I
yeah.
mean, I'm pretty sure y'all do, but do y'all incorporate the game time
Mhm.
situations into
Yep.
that?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, to me, like that's basically fundamentals as well, right? Like, is understanding the game. Like, if you got to understand how to control the ball. There's a certain level where the team that controls the ball is the team that wins. Typically, in close games, those games that matter. I mean, a lot of those things, those are the difference makers, and those are the things that maybe people that haven't played or don't understand the game to that extent really don't see. But you don't hit your cutoff man, and instead of there being runners on first and third with one out, and now you have a double play intact, now you have runners on second and third with one out, and now our infield's having, or our middles are having to play in, and now we're leaving more room behind them for to get beat on a little bloop shot. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like there's those little things that you gotta, they have to learn what to do. They have to learn how to react. They have to learn, it's just, difference, what's the score, what's the out, what's the inning, all those things that they need to have, like, understand, in order to make decisions and really be prepared for that next play and that situation. Yeah, we have to do it in practice. Because again, back to that 1 million different things that could happen in a
Exactly.
game, right?
Yes.
Like you got to have those fundamentals, ideas and concepts to prepare with in order to be able to react when one of those variable situations comes into play, right? And be able to make good decisions. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
A
So,
quick decision.
very quick decision. Yeah. And but again, you got to know what's going on. I mean, if you're,
Mhm.
if it's a zero or if it's a tie ball game in the bottom of the seventh and there's a runner on third, I mean, you got to know what you got to do. I mean, you can go get the second out at first, but you just lost the game. Like again, it's like that's a pretty basic example, but you know what I mean. Like
Mhm.
as an outfielder, like runners on second and third, and ball hit to center, deep center. Like, are you throwing to home or are you throwing to third? Are you hitting through your cut? Like, what do you know what I mean? Like those,
Mhm.
again, those things matter. Um, it's about mitigating damage sometimes, and they have to understand how to do that. So,
Yeah.
yep,
Yeah. You wouldn't realize how important that cutoff man is. I was girly at that time.
yeah,
I done seen something throw from outfield to home. But man, that cutoff sometimes is
yeah,
very, very important.
yeah, yep.
Mhm.
It definitely is.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, don't miss the
Mhm.
cutoff, man.
Yeah. So how important is it, you have the younger age groups and I don't some of them might not understand the whole, how important it is to communicate,
Hmm.
on the field as much.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
somebody that's, you'd have made it to the D1 level and I'm pretty sure y'all just nonstop out there
Hmm.
on the field. But
Hmm.
just explain like how important is communication is on the field.
I mean, communications is everything. It's like those situations we just talked about. I mean, how do you know what the plan is unless you communicate it, right? So,
Mhm.
um, you're constantly trying to get them to have that energy on the field and talk and chatter and like cheering and all that to the
Yeah.
pitcher, encouragement. That's part of it, but the majority of that energy should come from you talking to the person next to you, just behind you, like whatever position you're at, the situation. It's just making sure everyone's on the same page.
Mhm.
Um, Again, that will allow you to focus on the play that's happening and not, instead of trying to figure out what you're doing with the, like, it helps you focus on fielding the ball instead of focusing on, so you can, instead of focusing, gosh, if I can learn to talk here, you can focus on fielding the ball instead of worrying about what you're going to do with it, right? Because if
Mhm.
your mind's in two different places, then you're probably not really taking care of that ball. So
Mhm.
yeah, so it's communication. I mean, um, and I think the thing with the kids, and I use this as an example with them all the time. Like, I was a senior in college. We had a freshman pitcher. Um, every time there was a runner on first, I would get her attention, look her in the eye, and say, "Ball back to you. I'll be at second." Right? Every pitch, ball back to you. I'll be at second. Hey, ball back to you. I'll be at second. One day she's like, "I know. You already told me that." And I was like, "Hey, I got to make sure that you know, right? Because that
Mhm.
split second hesitation could mean A, we don't get that lead runner at second, right?
Mhm.
Or you turn and it's you're not trusting that I'm there and now it's a bad throw, whatever. So yeah, I'm gonna say it every time. Like, what's it hurting? It's not hurting anything.
Right.
It only there's only upside to it. So yeah, they they don't want to annoy each other or whatever, and I'm like, I don't care, I just want to make the play, so I can annoy you all day, but hey, guess what, if the ball's hit to you, where am I going to be? I'm going to be over there. So you know what I mean. so that's just the example I give them, but I'm always like, basically over communicate just every time. And again, I played next to, she's still my best friend, my third baseman for 4 years. um we communicated, but then there's times when you just kind of like you just she would look back at me, I'd look at her, and we just like, okay, like, yep, we're on the same page, like,
Mhm.
so it becomes, there becomes a synergy at some point, but again, that comes with experience and initially communication.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so
Mhm. No,
yep,
okay.
yep.
That's what do you think about this whole new age change thing? I know, once they get into 16 or 18 it basically goes into place anyway. But what do you think about it for the younger ages?
um I don't know. I don't know if it really matters. Like, I think as long as it's uniform across the board, like whatever they
Mhm.
decide it is, it is. I think it really depends what state you're in and how they do how their age cutoffs for high school is, really, or for school,
Okay.
sorry.
Hmm.
Like where I'm from, where my oldest started school, which was up in Canada, it's the calendar year. So if you're born January 1st to December 31st, you're starting kindergarten that September. So
Hmm.
myself, my oldest, we started kindergarten at 4 years old, right? So she started kindergarten at 4. I started kindergarten at 4. Whereas if we lived in Texas when we started kindergarten, we would have waited a whole other year and we would have started when we were 5.
Hmm.
Um, so it really, I think, again, it depends what state, because in Texas, our cutoff is, I don't even know what it is. What is it?
I think it's,
August
August
1st or
31st.
August, yeah, August
Yeah,
1st, I think.
yeah, something like that.
You
Yeah.
know, so I think then in that case, that system makes sense, right? Now, maybe if you go back up to a state, because I think some northern states do the calendar year, it
Mhm.
might not make sense for them anymore, because kind of like next year, I'm going to have most of my team go to high school, and then
Some
one
of
at
them.
this
Yeah.
point, one not.
Mhm.
So I think they probably should base it on the high, like how we see it as in high at the or the school ages, but again, that's still going to mess up some other states.
Some of
So I
yeah.
don't think, unless they make that uniform, I don't know if anyone's ever going to be truly happy.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, for me, I just want it to be fair. That's it.
Fair. Yeah.
Me,
I
but
mean,
I think that okay, like if you, I mean, eventually you get to high school. I mean, you can't do anything about that. But if you have somebody that's a 2011 and she's born late, but she's really, really good, don't, you know what I mean? Go and play with the 2012s. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And vice
Yeah.
versa. 2012, you know you up here already in your age group.
Mhm.
Don't
Yeah.
go and play with the
Yeah.
13s,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's
Yeah. I
gonna end up
think,
happening sooner or later.
yeah, I mean, regardless of how you slice it, the girls at the beginning of that age cutoff are still a year older than the girls at the end. You
Hmm.
know, so it really, I think the point what they're trying to do is just level set it so that it's like if you have a 2029 or if you have a 2000 say 11 team like mine, that they truly are all 2029
Hmm.
graduates, you know, so then
Yeah.
teams don't get broken up, whatever. But
Hmm.
again, I don't know if if they're good enough, they'll play up.
Yeah.
If they're not, they at that point they
Yeah.
won't.
You need. Hmm.
Everyone
Yeah.
develops at a different sort
Yep.
of pace, and um I think, and like you said, once they get to kind of 16, 18, honestly, like, it doesn't really matter anyways. I mean, usually, it's once they get to high school, it's kind of,
Yeah,
it
it's
doesn't
all
matter
over the
anyways.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because if your kid need more development and you need her to stay down, then let her stay down. Who cares what people think?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Or hey,
it's
if
none
she's
of their
happy,
business.
if she's being challenged enough. I mean, there's a lot of so many factors in it,
Mhm.
so many factors. What you
Yeah,
can afford.
yeah, exactly. That's the main thing, right?
Well, it's unfortunately these days it takes what it takes, and what it
Mhm.
takes is a lot of money. So,
Yeah, a lot. Yep, for
yep, a
sure.
lot of talent, a lot of work, a lot of time, and a lot of
A
money.
lot of
So,
money. Hmm.
yep.
Yeah. So with the different sanctions and with the sanction, I talk about like the main ones, like the PGF Alliance, TFL. They
Hmm.
have like the prospect wires
Hmm.
and stuff like that. So as they get older, which ones do you think it's certain ones you should go play in, or as long as you plan in those, you should be fine. What's your take on that?
Um, I think, I mean, we just try to seek out the competition, right? So, I mean, right now where we're at, I mean, it really depends again where you are across the country, across the state,
Mhm.
but I mean, our schedule is mostly Prospect Wire, which, is Alliance sort of TFL affiliated,
Mhm.
because again, that's sort of what saturates our market in terms of the good competition.
Mhm.
Of course, like PGF will show up every once in a while and host a pretty good tournament to you. And then, I know a lot of people are split on PGF or Alliance, and it's kind of depends on your org and all that sort of stuff. But what I really worry about is just, getting them in front of good competition, and eventually it's just making sure that they're in the right place to make sure that they're able to showcase their skills to achieve their goals, right? So
Mhm.
at this stage in it for us at the 14, especially first year 14U level, it's just about getting better. So I don't really care what the sanction is, to be honest, as long as the good
Mhm.
teams are there, you know? So I
Yeah.
mean, so that's sort of my take. And I know there's certain things that go into it, and you got, all the placements and
Politics.
this, that, and the other, and there's lots of things, but
Yeah.
at the very base level,
Mhm.
I wouldn't care if it was called, Levi's
Whatever.
League.
Hey, that sounds good.
There you go. You're gonna be a tournament director before we know it. Levi's League.
Oh no, I couldn't do that. I don't know if I could do that because I
Right.
would want to be a tournament director like
Yeah.
past years, right? I would
Mhm.
want to be involved around making sure like this guy, man, I watch him when we go to Arkansas and he makes sure he goes around and talk to every team, parents
Mhm.
from every team. This
Mhm.
past when we was in Arkansas, a girl hit a home run in the lake, river
Mhm.
or whatever, and he went get the ball out the water. Like, you know what I mean? Like he
Yeah.
just, I mean, that's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
great tournament director. He goes above
Yep.
and beyond to make sure everybody is happy.
Yes. Yeah, you want those tournament directors that really care. I think the thing that grinds my gears the most is when people say, we spend all this time, we spend all this money, these girls are super dedicated, they care. They
Mhm.
wouldn't be putting themselves through this if they didn't. Oh, I got a dog over here that's scratching. Wouldn't they wouldn't put themselves through all this, and their parents wouldn't go through it if they really didn't just love it and care. And if
Mhm.
when they say, "Oh, it's just girls softball, and I'm
Yeah. See,
like,
okay.
I don't think anything freaking initial like fire me up more than and
Mhm.
I've heard it out of some tournament directors. So,
Mhm.
so yeah, no, when the good ones come around and the ones that you can truly see like care, it's definitely appreciated.
Mhm.
And good umpires, making sure that they're in place. And again, just yeah, just running a really good tournament and just making sure it's not just for the money or whatever, that it's really
Mhm.
they're really trying to advance the sport and help these girls advance in the goals that they have, no
Mhm.
matter what their age is, because they work hard and
Yeah.
they do care, so
Yeah. My wife
Mhm.
said, "Don't give me any ideas," because I just be thinking about stuff. So last weekend, this past weekend, we played, and like I was like, "Man, what about if I start a valet service at the parks? Levi's valet service. People just take that so I go park their car for
Right.
'em."
Oh man, I've heard some stories recently from parents of other sports. Like, people complain about the gate fees and the parking fees at our
Mhm.
tournament.
Yeah.
I mean, at our tournaments, man, like I've heard $50 a person to get into basketball. Like
Yeah, I've
adults,
heard that too.
2-year-old. Like I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't even think the Rockets tickets are that much, are they?
It's right.
Like,
Not at all.
some charge for parking and to get into the door, and I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, so
Mhm.
it's crazy. Some of
Yeah,
these,
so we
yeah,
might be in the right sport.
right. I mean, yeah, geez. I mean, it's yeah. Some of that stuff's. I was hearing that. I was like, that is
Yeah,
insane.
yeah, I heard
Yeah,
that about basketball. They pretty
yeah,
expensive to get
yeah.
because they said they running lights and the AC and all that, so you have to pay for all that. I guess I don't know. I don't know. So how do you base your pitching rotation? Like throughout the weekend, is it a okay? Sunday you keep on in that rotation, or is it okay? This person was throwing good on Saturday, so she might start off on Sunday, or like
Mhm.
how do you go about that?
I think there's an element of that, obviously, when you get into bracket and you're trying to like obviously win and compete,
Right.
but a lot of it's matchup, I'd say. You kind of you kind of get to know what each team likes, can't, doesn't like, all those things, and
Mhm.
you try to do matchups. Again, I'm big on the development piece, so um, I would always I again, I know these girls work hard. They're on the team for a reason, so I would always try to give them a game or a start or opportunity, right, to really showcase and put into action what they've been working on all week and just throughout the season. But
Mhm.
I mean, sometimes it's just not your weekend, right?
Right.
And so you have to be able to recognize that as a player and understand that it might be someone's weekend
Mhm.
and be able to understand what it's my job to do what's best for the team above what's best for the individuals, right? Like I really always have both fighting like the just on my shoulder, right? Because you really want to, how hard some kids work and you want to give them that opportunity, but you have to think of how the team um how that's going to go for the team, right?
Mhm.
And hey, sometimes you think you're making all the right moves and it doesn't work either.
Yeah.
So
True.
but yeah, I'd say like bracket. And it really depends on the structure of the tournament too, of course, right?
Mhm.
Um, I mean, if it's between like an 8 a.m. game and a noon game, like
We will
I'm
win.
we're going to win. But yeah,
It don't
we're
matter if
probably not
you pitch
probably
this
not
way.
taking chances here,
Yeah.
but everyone knows my opinion on 8 a.m. games.
That's
Never played them
gotta
in
be
high
the
school,
truth.
never played them in college. Don't think we should ever play them.
Yeah,
Just gonna
exactly.
put that out there. Just gonna put that out
Yeah.
there. But I understand. I know tournament director. Oh, we gotta get so many games and blah blah blah. But no, I get it. I'm just kidding. But it's
Mhm.
really the 8 a.m. and then the 8 p.m. when you got. It's like no, don't do that. Don't do that.
But yeah, so I
Right.
didn't play a late game. Well, I haven't played. My daughter
Mhm,
played a late
mhm.
one night. I think we was at the scrapyard. It was like 10, 11 o'clock. Sucks. They ended up losing, and we had to be back for that 8 a.m. game.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that was a life decision because man, I could have stayed sleeping.
Yeah. Yeah, at some point you like, okay, just throw all the stuff in the car, like all the uniforms at the beginning of the weekend, and then that way, if we have to stay at a hotel, we can just make that decision
Mhm.
because that sleep is, yeah.
Yeah, I need
And I
sleep.
mean, they can sleep in the car on the way there. We gotta
Exactly.
drive. This is
Yep.
more about us, Levi. This is about us.
Mhm. Exactly, it's about us. No, somebody gonna take that the wrong way.
It's okay. I'm used to it. I'm used to it.
So
Yeah.
what was the process? I know you from Canada, but since your kids, they've been in the States and I see they played, for Canada. Like
Mhm.
what was the process like for them to be able to play for Canada?
So I just stayed well, like social media, just basically started following Softball Canada and made contact with, their people and kept my eye out for different opportunities. Oh, you still there? Oh, there we go. Um Different opportunities for, different teams that they were holding ID camps for or tryouts, and yeah, we just went from there. So we had to fly up to the ID camps because they're in Canada.
Mhm.
So I think this age group, well, my older daughter's age group, there's 16 girls, I believe, on the team for the qualifier in the last summer. 3 of them were Canadians that lived in the States. And the rest were all from Canada. So yeah, basically everything happens up there. So had to take my older one up to an ID camp, and then she got called back for the final selection camp. So we had to fly up again, do the final selection camp, and then obviously the team meets at the tournament and they practice a few days ahead of time and all that. And then same thing with Coco, my middle one. We had to go up to an ID camp, and luckily my parents still live up there, so
Mhm.
hopefully the timing works out where we can go to one. And it was actually kind of funny. The one we went to for her in, I can't remember if it was the end of August or September, but it was literally 10 minutes from their house. Like
Oh wow.
she was
Perfect.
born in the town where the tryout was, which was it
No,
was
that's
kind of funny.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's
so
perfect.
so yeah, it worked out. So we got to, stay at grandma and grandpa's and get all those benefits of, good food, good homemade food, and being chauffeured around to, BP and the tryouts, and yeah, it was great. So that was, yeah, that's what we did. So, but
Okay,
yeah,
nice.
but they'll can be competing in the Pan American Games. It's like the World Cup qualifier,
Mhm.
the end of March in Acapulco. So that,
Okay.
that'll be a really cool experience. So
Okay, nice. Well, good luck to them. Hopefully they can, do good out there.
yeah, Canada's usually pretty up there in the world stage. So this is the first time they've
Okay.
ever had a U15 team, but I think it'll be good.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Mhm. Playing softball is always
lots
good to
of
get reps, no matter what.
expectations, right? Back to
Yeah,
those
big
expectations.
expectations. You done it, and everybody else in your family done it.
So it's
What
all good.
advice do you have for girls like going through recruitment on like which school to pick, and like how do you know like, okay, this school might be best for me over Georgia or Oklahoma, Florida, over the names, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, every kid's going to be different in what they want, right? I've
Mhm.
heard some kids, oh, I just want to go to that school and I don't care if I ever play. I just want to be on the team and wear the uniform. I don't understand that, right? Like, I wouldn't work for something my whole life to just go somewhere and be happy with sitting on a bench,
Yeah,
right?
no.
So that doesn't make any sense to me. But hey, if that's what they want, that's what they want, right? If
Mhm.
mommy and daddy can pay for that, mm, go for it.
Go for it.
That's your prerogative. I'm not going to judge it. It's just that wouldn't be me.
Mhm.
So I think uh, I would advise a kid that wants to compete to go somewhere that they're going to play. I mean, I don't necessarily like how the transfer portal is right now. I think there needs to be a little more regulation around it, but it does give you that ability to go somewhere, um, have the opportunity to play, develop, get bigger, get stronger, develop that 17, 18, 19-year old in, and then maybe move on to something else if that's really what you wanted to do, right? Like maybe you weren't ready for D1 coming out of high school, but you went and you got 2 really good years, or even 1 really good year at a junior college or a D2, or whatever, and then you go up, or you
Yeah.
don't, and that's okay too, because at the end of the day with girls it's mostly about getting that education piece, right?
Mhm.
There's not a lot after college. I mean, they're starting to try, but
Yeah.
and there are more opportunities than ever, but there's still it's still not men's sports, right?
Mhm.
So I think just having the perspective on what you want. I mean, I know from my older daughter's recruitment that she didn't really have like a specific like major that she really wanted to do, or it wasn't super, it was just kind of a normal one, right? So we didn't really have to have that necessarily in our consideration, but
Okay.
some of her friends, some of her teammates had very specific, like, this is what I want to do, and I know this is what I want to do, right? So their recruitment was maybe a little bit more difficult, a little more challenging, because not only did the school have to have the program they
Right.
wanted, but they also had to want to recruit them,
Yeah.
right? So it becomes that. And then how far do you want to be away from home, and just all that stuff. I mean, the biggest thing I would say is just make sure you visit the school. And I don't think people do that a lot anymore. There used to be back home, a lot of kids would just kind of commit sight unseen because
Oh,
of
wow.
the travel aspect to it, and that
Okay.
really rarely ended well. Um, but yeah, just for me, like I said earlier, when I decided, it was really the coaching staff. It was really just, you knew that what you were being told was genuine, and it wasn't a promise of playing time, but it was a promise of opportunity. And they really valued you as a player, and they really wanted you to be part of their program. And I think at the end of it, like, you'll be able to feel that, and I mean, hopefully they're only recruiting you if they feel that, but you get a vibe on people either way, and who you're going to mesh with, and who, and when, the when the warm and fuzzy, kind of recruiting thing drops, and it's real life. So
Mhm.
yeah, and I mean, we have more resources than ever nowadays, so
Now you got to add the
watching.
NIL.
Oh
You're
yeah.
gonna pay me a little bit of
Well,
money.
there's not everyone's gonna get that. That's a whole other thing. That's like a yeah, that's
That's a whole
yeah.
nother job
There's a
right
lot
there.
of yeah, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding and everything around on all that, and the roster changes and the scholarship
Mhm.
all that stuff. People really need to do their research before they um
Choose.
start the
Yeah.
process. Yeah. Mhm.
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 Okay. So knowing as a coach, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give yourself from when you first started coaching?
Hmm. Oh man, when I first started coaching, don't do it. No, I'm just kidding. Um, no,
Don't say
sit-
that.
just sit in the stands and just no, I'm just kidding. Um, gosh, I don't even know. Gosh, that's a tough one. I mean, I think I've learned. I'm constantly self-evaluating myself, and trying to just become a better version of myself. And I know, I'll make mistakes and I have downfalls, but I really try to like self-reflect, and if I haven't set a good example, I own it, and I apologize for it, or I try to correct it, or it just there's accountability, right? And so I think I'm a lot different coach now than I was even last year, right? Even the year before. And I think that's how it should be, right? And again, I think that's the example you set for your players, because they should be constantly evolving too. Um, but I mean, I think I've always really tried to care for my players, and sometimes that backfires on you, and it's not necessarily the players, it's the parents, it's the misunderstanding. I think the more communication, the better. I've learned that. and just being open to feedback or questions from parents. Sorry. Um, yeah, so I think just I don't really know one specific thing. I'm trying to think of one specific thing, but it's just be constantly evolving and self-reflective and just constantly learning with the girls. And I think that's what makes a really good coach, you know. So
Mhm. Okay.
yeah.
Why do you think it's more men coaching softball than women?
Okay, it's so funny. I get asked this. I think I think okay, so basically our generation, like I think more men played baseball, right, than maybe women played softball. So I think naturally, like in maybe like a marriage at this point, there might be more men that were like athletes and then the women necessarily weren't. So that defaults the man to the coaching position, right? Um,
Mhm.
they're younger than women played softball. And I think so in the next 15 or 10, 15 years, I think you might see more of a shift because there'll be more girls, women in marriages that are like, no, I played, I got it, you
Yeah.
know. So that's the hope, I guess. But that with that being said, some of my favorite coaches I ever had were men. So I don't know if it really like matters. But I do think there is a something to be said for the girls seeing like strong females,
Yeah.
on the field. So
Mhm. Yeah.
and sharing that passion too. So yeah.
I agree. I agree. I
Mhm.
agree. Especially people like like you said, that's played it. You can
Mhm.
really pass on your knowledge of the game to the younger girls, and that really helps a lot. But at the same time, not every some people think every just because you played this sport, you can be a great coach, and that's not always the case
Right.
either.
Mhm.
Just because you played, that doesn't mean that you're a good coach. You could just
Right.
be able to play the sport.
Right.
You
Yeah.
can't always teach what you did.
You got to learn how to be a good coach. Like, yeah, I still try to like learn how to like verbalize certain things and certain skills and certain ideas and
Mhm.
just really, yeah, it's definitely a skill and it definitely takes time and experience to be able to become good at it.
Okay, well, my final question is the famous one. Who would you
Uh-oh.
like to who would you like to see on the podcast? Now it's not here, it's see on
Oh,
the podcast, but you will have to help me get your answer on the podcast.
who who do I want to see on the podcast
hmm
and who could I help get on the podcast?
Yes, you will
Oh,
have to help me get your answer on the podcast.
um, well, why not my partner in crime at the end of my team name, and so Zito, Jason
Okay,
Mercado. There you go.
okay.
I don't know if
I
he'll
think
do it. I don't know if he'll do it. I don't know if he's like much of a social media like guy,
mhm.
but hey,
Jason,
he's got a
right?
lot to say. He's got a lot to
Yeah,
say. So let's have him.
Jason, right?
Yeah,
Jason.
Jason. Yeah.
Okay, okay. I actually got his number.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There you
So
go.
yeah, we need to make that happen. I was talking to him like I think it was like a few weeks ago,
Okay.
and I don't know what happened, but I probably got busy and forgot to message
Yeah.
probably.
I
But
mean, Yep,
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Jason, we need to get you on the podcast because I actually had him on the audio only.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, but I
I'm gonna
do
come
want
talk.
to. I like to just the people I
Mhm.
had on the audio only trying to get them on
Yeah.
this part too. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Give us some FaceTime. Yeah,
yeah,
good.
yeah. So people can actually see who you are. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
there you
But
go. For better or
again,
worse, right?
yeah, 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 exactly. Yeah. But again, hey, I really appreciate you for, giving me
Yeah.
your time and being on the podcast. It's always good to hear from somebody that actually lived it, done
Mhm.
it, and now coaching and giving the knowledge back to the
Yep.
young ones. So I really appreciate you for giving me your time.
Of course, I appreciate you having me and love talking softball. So
All
it's
right.
a pleasure. All
All
right.
right. All right. Have a
Thank
good
you,
one.
Levi.
All
All right.
right.
You have a
No
great
problem.
night.
All right.
All
You
right.
too. Bye.
Okay. Bye.